I'm Shayla, and this is my third video this week from New York City. And I had a plan to take you into a coffee shop with me this morning, but I have just normal, headphones, and the noise cancellation wasn't spectacular, so it was really loud of all the other noise, and you couldn't really hear me. So I'm back in the hotel room, which is fine because it's quiet. You hear it? It's quiet. It's so nice and quiet. And I realized that this afternoon, after dropping the boys off after lunch, that I needed some quiet. So I came back and I've done a little bit of reading in the room, and I have let go of this idea or this thought that I'm in New York and I need to be out exploring New York and I need to be out doing this and that because I'm in New York. I've let go of that, and I've just taken in and absorbed the quiet. And that's going to help me to be a better me tonight for the kids, for the boys, and for tomorrow when we go to the UN as a whole group with all the other 2,000 MMUN conference people, 3,000 with chaperones. Yes, it's going to be a busy. And then our plan is to maybe go to Central Park after that. And then Sunday, we are hopefully going to get home. Back home, they're having tons and tons of snow and super bad weather. And I hope it's going to be okay. We're going to make it home eventually, right? I guess if we have to stay in New York airport for a while, that's what has to happen. But anyway, so back to it being quiet and recognizing that that's what my body needs is some quiet to be its better self. There's a reason for that, and that's what I'm going to talk about. Our emotional well-being. That's what I'm going to talk a little bit about, and how essential oils help our emotional well-being and help us to be our better selves. And since I'm not in a coffee shop, I'm sitting sharing with you with my naked juice that's left over from lunch, because I only had yogurt for lunch, which may play into this conversation as well. What we put into our bodies as food affects our mood as well and our emotions. But to start, there's a significant connection between our emotional well-being and our emotional health and our physical health. The body releases various chemicals in response to our own emotions. And I'm taking all of my information from what I already know about the brain and my own training with like trauma-informed care and with my special education degree, things like that. And then also I'm getting a little bit of help and assistance from the Essential Basics book. That's amazing because it's, travel size and perfect for a trip to New York, right? And to do videos. So, our emotional and physical health they intertwine. They are connected, and the body releases these various chemicals in response to the emotions that we have. So we have like the serotonin, the dopamine, the oxytocin. Those all, help uplift us, right? When we're releasing those chemicals. And it gives us a positive sensation in our body. That feel good, my heart just swells type of sensation. But stress causes the brain to instruct the release of cortisol. And the body's response will be one of urgency, maybe even fear, anxiety, things like that. So Emotional stress can have a very profound effect on our body because our body is releasing these chemicals into it. And that's why I tell my kids in class why we do yoga often, or, I try to get them outside to go to recess and run around. And I tell them to stretch your muscles out because your body, when you are under a lot of stress, bad stress especially, you have bad chemicals in essence in your body, and you have to release those and get those out. And then also being physically active and having good relationships and having fun and laughing, those are sending out other chemicals into your body that help it feel good and help it heal. So you can get a range of illnesses from these things, from those negative, from that cortisol that's being released in the body from the negative stress or emotional stress. That's headaches come into play. Your digestive issues can come from that. You can't sleep well. Heart disease. All of those things physically affect your body. And I say it in a lot of videos, but this is kind of a little bit of explanation as to why that's happening, why your physical ailments come out, because something else emotionally may be going on, and you're just not realizing it. Your body has released these chemicals into your system, and it's trying to get out, right? Kind of like why when children have fevers, or people, not just children, when you get a fever, that is your body's natural way of getting out the infection, burning, in essence, that infection that's in your body. It's the same thing when it comes to emotional issues. So where am I in my notes? Yes, talked about that. Okay, so our body, our brain, has emotional responses to the stress that we put on it, good stress, bad stress, right? And it goes into the hypothalamus part of the brain, which is the control and command center, okay? And I always do this with my kids. This is your brain. This is your prefrontal cortex here in the front. And inside of that is your amygdala, and then your hypothalamus right there. Right, or your hippocampus, this is all part of that hypothalamus part of your brain. So that's converting your mental thoughts and emotions into hundreds of different types of like neuropeptides. I know these are kind of big words, but neuropeptides of things. And those emotions are triggered by, your threat to something. And it's very powerful because it's initiating the release of certain messengers in your brain, and those then are attaching to other receptors, which is what's telling your brain to react in a certain way. And then that in turn affects our biology of the chemistry throughout our body. So I didn't want to talk about that. So we have an experience. Right, I'm going to kind of explain this right there. You see that? Little flow chart, right? I'm going to explain that. So you have an experience, and that experience creates an emotional response. And then your emotional response, then you do some type of restorative self-care. And then that restorative self-care stimulates the hypothalamus, which helps produce some peptide production, which helps then to bind onto specific cellular receptors, triggers another cell reaction. Then you have a biological response, which then creates a memory or a belief even. And then it starts all over for when that next time you have that experience, you have an emotional response, restorative self-care, hopefully. If you don't have that, then this kind of skews and goes off into another direction, right? If you don't have some good restorative self-care, because your hypothalamus is still being stimulated, only it's being stimulated in a different way. If you don't have some really good self-care, or we have safety plans at my school for when we have a response to an emotional response to something. because then your brain's going to produce some peptides, which are going to bind on to some cell receptors, triggers the cell reaction. You have an immediate biological response, and then it's going to create a memory. So as you keep doing this over and over, that's where if you have negative or bad reactions to certain things, then it's because that's what you've taught your brain. That's what you taught your brain. Well, this got me through the last time, when really it may not have gotten you through it. It just, it didn't get you through it healthily, I guess. So yeah, I mean, and this can be with anything: trauma, happy memories, or happy events, experiences, stress, good stress, bad stress. It's all in how your body is telling you to react. And if it's a negative and you're attaching on to specific cells in a negative way, then that's then creating those negative, what I was talking about before, the negative chemicals being released into your body, and then you get the sicknesses into that, right? So my job at school is to help, and even my job at home with my children is to help create new paths, a new pathway for them, so that when they have that experience and they have that emotional response immediately based on prior memories, prior biological responses, that restorative self-care, that's where I step in to try to change that pathway to a new restorative self-care, new coping skills, new coping strategies for that emotional response, so that the next time, so then a new pathway is then started. And then the next time they have another experience that they're reminded of, that's similar, doesn't have to be the same experience. It just is a similar experience. Hopefully they choose this other path with those coping skills, the healthy ones, and then things start to be restored in healthy ways. God, did that make sense? I thought that was pretty amazing. That came out way better than what I thought it was going to. That's pretty exciting. So food kind of plays into that too, right? Okay, so we have an experience and we have this emotional response, and sometimes our self-care is not so healthy food. We call them comfort foods. One of my comfort foods is French fries. I love French fries. I really do. But they're not healthy for you. They're not. I just had this conversation with one of the boys on the way back from lunch. From lunch, we found a food emporium here in New York City, and so the boys got to go around like the buffet and fill up their little plastic, containers. And I kept telling them, okay, remember, this is going to be weighed, and it's going to cost $10 a pound, so you may be hungry, but your stomach is, your eyes are bigger than your stomach. Trying to explain that to them. But the kid I was talking to, he had filled some macaroni and cheese into his, and the other one had just got like some fried food, like some fried potatoes and some fried French fries and some chicken wings, and his did not weigh as much as, the other one who got a small amount of macaroni and cheese and some cauliflower and it was steamed cauliflower, I think, a little bit more healthier foods. And so but the healthier foods weighed more. So we were talking about that. I was like, well, that's interesting, because, the carbs, those carbohydrates, that's what they tell you to use when you run. You take in all the pasta that you can, because those good sugars, the good carbohydrates is what is going to help you run and sustain, yourself. But it's heavier, right? And if you think about that, you're putting heavier food into your body. But when you fry food, it kind of like sucks the nutrients out and it's lighter. And he said, and that's interesting, because the fried food, the bad for you food, makes you weigh more. But the food that's heavier, it's healthier for you. And I was like, That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, it was a great conversation, like a connection. But it's true. Like your food is going to affect your mood uh, based on the chemicals that it puts out, the toxins that it puts out into your body. And then those then attach onto, receptors and things like that then affect, in essence, your mood. They deliver those messages to the brain and the cells of the body, just like any of the other experiences that you have. And it attaches onto the things in the brain. And the food chemicals unlock the receptor sites in our brain. I'm just going to read because I'm getting flustered. Unlock the receptor sites in our brain and transmit influences that if we knew, we would never let them in to begin with, right? So it says here, it's kind of like a chemical soup is what we're ingesting into our bodies. And so if you think about that, eating more healthier foods are putting more healthier cells and reactions and emotions into our body and our brain. And then also some of those things also help flush out the bad, right? I know doTERRA has some really good antioxidants and things like that to help flush your system of all those the bad stuff that we've put into our bodies already. A lot of things that people sometimes kind of talk down on organic, but I've really been led lately to buy more organic, whole, healthier, whole grain, whole food type things because of the emotional, trauma that we go through and that our body needs to be treated better. And it's true that all those additives that they put even on fruits and things and vegetables, it takes the nutrients out, or it's adding onto the good food. Yes, but they're adding it into it, and it's not healthy. It's not healthy. It's not good for our bodies. And if you think about it, our bodies don't, really need a lot of that food to be super clean and gone through, because back in, long time ago, before grocery stores were as popular as they are now, when we were eating what we grew, we would just pick it up out of the earth and, wash it clean a little bit, but it still had some really good nutrients in it from the ground, because the earth gives us what we need. So we need that. We don't need it to be scrubbed completely clean and gone through so many different chemical something or others to make it more pure of food or more clean of food, I guess. We just need to let our bodies do what it was meant to do and give it what it's meant to have. I guess that's what I'm saying. So, flipping over my notes. So, how do essential oils come into this? So there's a huge connection to our sense of smell and our hypothalamus, where I was talking about where all those memories are stored, the command center of our brain, right? There's a huge, huge connection from our sense of smell to that part of the brain. It's in the limbic system, part of the brain it's the oldest part of the brain that holds everything that has ever happened to us. So many times when things happen to young children, super young children, babies, infants, they themselves may not remember what has happened. Like they may not be able to pull those memories to the forefront of their brain, but their body remembers it. Their body will always remember it. It will always be there. It does not matter how young you are, all the way to in utero. Like in utero, things that are happening to the mom is releasing chemicals, bad stress chemicals into the uterus. And so that is then, while the baby is being created and made in this amazingness, it's taking all that in, and it will always remember it. But I mean, obviously, in utero babies never go, no, those memories are not going to come forward, but the body remembers it. The body keeps it. And so that part of the brain has a direct connection to our sense of smell. And scents are experienced long before words are. That's why when sorry, I have that naked juice on my lips. That probably looked really weird. That's sometimes if I smell a certain cologne that a boyfriend or girlfriend from a long time ago had worn, it's just like goes, whew. Like it takes you back there, right? It takes you back there. Grandma's cookies. My mom has a certain perfume that I don't think I've ever smelled somebody else with it. But if I walk into her room, it takes me back to when I was, 8 and smelling that perfume if she's, just put it on at home. But, hair sticking out. So our sense of smell is like a direct correlation to our memories. And it remembers it. Our brain holds scents longer than it will ever hold words and actions. So if we're trying to relieve stress, if we're trying to stabilize our mood, if we're trying to improve our sleep, eliminate pain, any of these things, even improving memory or trying to get energy, scents can actually change the biochemistry of our nervous system. And that's where essential oils comes in. So the scents can change the emotional response that we have to something, which is going to help with that self-care, stimulating the hypothalamus, eventually just, going through all the peptides and the cell receptors and the cell reaction and the biological response to creating a memory or a belief. So get it in there first with that emotional response. And it's going to help that pathway that, I try to do with my kids at school, help that pathway to be changed to a more healthy response. I diffuse essential oils in my classroom all the time. The kids ask if they can, I have a roller with essential oils in it. They ask if they can have that sometimes. So the power of the essential oil to choose our mood is big. Many people often think that that moods are chosen, that we just can't help them, and that they're happening to us. But that's not what it is. The chemical impact of our emotions and other cell reactions is the chooser of the mood. It's the chemical impact in our brain that's choosing the mood, not the mood, not something external happening to us. That the mood isn't external. It could be an experience that's happening to us that puts us in that mood, but that's because of the chemical impact that's happening in our brain. That's why we reach for certain foods or caffeine or sugar or interact with certain people, right? That's why we do certain things. That's why we maybe have a drug of choice that helps with that. That's why we act. That's why we have certain behaviors because of how it makes us feel to get that good chemical hit, that good chemical feeling. But sometimes the things we choose are not healthy and positive and don't create a healthy pathway. So if we can replace some of those negative things, maybe the really bad drug of choice or the really negative people, or maybe the really negative behaviors in my class, the throwing a chair, that's not good. That's not healthy. You can't do that. If we can replace that by just changing, using an essential oil that uplifts us, that calms us, that soothes us, that replaces whatever that feeling was with a good one, then it's healing that cell, that cell receptor, and again creating that new pathway for the brain to heal and be healthy again. Kind of like this says in here, I love it, emotional traffic, because that's kind of what I've, the kind of that circular action of things. If we change our emotional cellular traffic, replacing it with good stops along the way, we will have more healthy people, and that would be great. More healthy relationships and more healthy thinking, and I'm saying "and" a lot. Making sure I said everything I wanted to say. So yeah, I think that's what I had. Our emotional well-being, which, coming full circle back to why I decided to do this video this afternoon, as I sat in the very, very quiet New York City hotel on Times Square, because it has been very loud, very busy time these last 2.5 days, and it's all been somewhat great. There's been some struggles and stresses along the way, and instead of having super negative responses, and I had changed some of the receptors to make new paths to be more healthy for myself, and to also be more healthy for the boys I'm here with, and mend relationships or build good relationships instead of breaking them. And that's, ultimately what it's all about, relationships, and good ones, because good relationships also change the peptide production and the cell receptor that it binds onto, and the triggers and the biological response, and creates great memories for more healthy experiences in the future. And that's what I got. And I think I've said "and" more times in this video than I have in another. I'm so sorry. The third video, I said I would do it. 3 videos in New York. I got them in. I'm a rock star. All right. Thanks for watching.